What it do, Jive Turkeys? Welcome back to the Controversy. I'm your host, Ian Elliott-Carter, and stand-up. It's one of my favorite things of all time. I love stand-up comedy, but this has been a weird year for stand-up. Let me explain. The environment has been difficult for stand-up comedians because sometimes you have to practice your routine in front of small audiences before you go into a big stage arena and whatnot. So it's been hard. And I've seen comedy evolving a little bit too. It's getting a little bit more serious and the jokes have been coming out. But Netflix is still dropping some types of specials, and Kevin Hart has dropped a special and we are going to review it. And I'm going to have my friends on here to talk about it. What's going on, Alex and Jeremy?
Yeah, man, everybody keeps talking about cancel culture since like 2018, and in 2020, everybody's literally been canceled because of coronavirus. So yeah, it's definitely made an impact on comedy. I think you bring up a really good point.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. So to give a little context, me and Alex are the ones that watched Kevin Hart stand up. And what is it called again? It's kind of
Zero Fucks Given.
Zero Fucks Given. It's kind of like what I thought about the stand up. And Jeremy is the only one that has not seen it. And before we also start, I do want to say Kevin Hart is a very funny person. Don't get it.
Yes, he is.
I think he's one of the best of this generation. I've actually seen him live. He cracks me up. His first 3 stand-ups are legendary, in my opinion. But in my opinion, also, he has been going downhill a little bit. But let's give an overall review and have this conversation of stand-up in 2020. Alex, what were your thoughts of this stand-up?
So I literally just finished watching it before we got on. And I was just telling Ian, it felt more like a conversation. Kevin Hart was in his house and he was a little bit too comfortable. And I guess maybe it's because he's not in a stadium where you can actually feel the energy, but this was too mellow. But his stand-up, and I hate to say this because Kevin Hart is a really good comedian, that particular stand-up fell really flat for me. There's one joke in there, which, it's not really a spoiler, but he's, him and his wife are arguing, and he goes off and to some different city, and she calls him. She was like, I bet you're getting your dick sucked right now. And he was like, at 7 a.m.? Like, there's just some random 7 a.m. woman sucking dicks out there. Like, that was the only joke for me that kind of made me bust out laughing. But everything else, he's talking about his kids, he's talking about his life, and we've already heard that. Like, there isn't a different avenue in that life where we haven't heard anything surprising. When Dave Chappelle talks about his life or things in general, it's like a twist to it every single time. I'm not a fan of all of Dave's specials, but I can definitely see the nuance in that. But with Kevin, after Let Me Explain, things just started going like this for me. And I won't say every special after that was terrible, but I'm saying that it felt the same. Like, I didn't feel that Kevin Hart energy that I normally feel. I have not seen him live, so I don't know what that would be like being live. But just judging the special in itself, I mean, he's at his home. I'm assuming the crowd is just close friends and relatives.
Yeah.
So it wasn't anything. I think those people were really paid to laugh. Like, because a lot of that stuff was not that funny.
There were some times I thought they added a laugh track because I was like, there might be 20 people in this room, but it sounds like there's 100. There's no way that this is matching up a little bit.
Yeah.
And of course, Jeremy has not seen this, but to give a little bit of visual, was him in his house, and it was like couches all over the place, and it was just people there.
It was kind of like a comedy club. If you ever been to the Improv, it's kind of like that kind of setting, but in his house.
So
Absolutely.
when Alex says that he seemed maybe a little too, I think the word you used was relaxed or comfortable. Mm-hmm. Do you equate that directly to low energy? Because I feel like that might be a broader problem with stand-up right now. Is it revolves so heavily around whether or not the audience is all in on the bit. So when you said it felt too relaxed or too comfortable, do you just feel like there wasn't enough energy because there wasn't enough of a crowd?
I feel like it was like he was, when I say too comfortable, he's saying whatever he feels is good enough for the audience that he has. Right. But I feel like anytime someone's like, if I know for a fact, if I go to Ian's house and Ian's comfortable with me, Ian's going to say whatever he wants to say because he's in his house. In this, it's like he's saying what he's want to say, but I feel like it's dumbed down. Like if I'm in my house, I'm saying all types of shit,
Yeah.
and I'm not really considering anybody in my house because it's my house. And
Yeah.
Kevin Hart's little special, it's marketed like that, but it's not like that. He's like just mellow, and like he's giving like a smooth take to that comedy. It's not necessarily high energy, or not necessarily like it's lazy. That's the better word I'm looking for. It's really lazy.
So what you're saying is too, when I 100% agree, like there was no, he wasn't really pressured or worked a little bit hard because like you said, if you guys are in my house, I've been around you long enough to know what's going to make you laugh. So I'm going to be talking to you like my homeboys. He didn't really have to work on it because if you're in a crowd full of strangers that you don't know, you do got to work for that laugh.
Yeah.
You know, you might make a lot of people laugh on the subject of black stuff, but the white people are like, okay, black jokes. Oh, I can't relate to that. You know, so you got to be a little bit creative and talk about things that they can relate to as well. So I do think that's one reason why I did fall flat. And of course, do you think the atmosphere of 2020 could have possibly been the reason for it not being as funny?
Well, yes and no, because there are comedians right now who are capitalizing of what's going on in 2020. Like they're making and no one should really make COVID a joke, obviously, but they're making the events of what's going on in 2020 hilarious. Like I read somewhere that when I saw I saw Country Wayne do like a snippet of a special about Donald Trump losing the election. It was funny. I saw something that Chris Rock did. He was like, shout out to COVID because apparently Donald Trump had got COVID, so we wish nothing but the best for COVID and what COVID had to deal with living in Donald Trump's body. Like that is hilarious. Like, and it's not, I wouldn't wish death on anybody, but I'm just saying like stuff like that, like stuff like that is like they know how to take certain nuances and make them funny. Kevin Hart is literally just like lazy. I just, you don't feel anything. Even when the whole thing starts, you're like, okay, he's talking to his family. Then he goes down to his living room with a bunch of people that he knows. And like I said, I feel like they're laughing because they know him. They're not laughing because it's actually funny, in my opinion.
That's interesting. I mean, both of y'all seem a little bit underwhelmed with it. And I'm not a huge Kevin Hart fan. I mean, I don't think that's a secret to anybody. I'm not a real big fan of his specials. He is a high energy comic. Him and Katt Williams, I don't feel like they're similar in their style or their delivery, but their energy level, it's always very, elevated. Yeah. And so I wonder, and two observations. One thing, we've seen this with black comics repeatedly this year where they do a more intimate stripped down set that is less focused on comedy and more focused on kind of current events, what's going on in society, using it as a forum to actually say something, where if it were a basketball player, you'd have Candace Owens out there saying shut up and dribble. Comics are allowed to be honest, so I think it's an appropriate venue for it. I remember there was a female comic like last year that did a Netflix special that came out that everybody was like, it's not comedy, it's just like her one-man show talking about her life and her experience. And Ian, you said it right up at the top, like this seems to kind of be a shift in the direction that comedy's going. I've always really liked John Oliver, and I think he's one of the smartest people working on TV. He now to me sounds like an angry right-winger news show host without an audience. When he had an audience and you knew that righteous anger still had humor and it still had a bite to it and there was comedy there, you could feel the humor in it more. But now that he's doing those very same monologues without an audience, he just comes off as sounding pissed off, and it hits you different. So I'm wondering how much of it is just strictly the environment.
Well, I want to say this as somebody that has done stand-up comedy. I know that whenever
that was a fucking nightmare.
At times it was. At times, when you actually do get those laughs, it is a great high. But I notice like whenever I have a routine that I have going on, and I get a reaction from a certain joke, I might branch off to more of the topics of that joke. But it's all about the vibe and reaction I'm getting from the audience.
Yeah.
If there is no audience, then I'm just going to continue with the setup I already have, which that does affect your stand-up comedy, because it's all up. The vibe you get from the audience is going to reflect on your show. I wanted to say one thing too about what you said about the vibe of 2020, of how some of these comedians are doing more serious takes. Like Dave Chappelle and Katt Williams did a little bit of a special about the social stuff going on. And I do think what's his name, Neal Brennan, actually said this. He said he thinks that comedy is evolving to that, but you have to be on a level like Kevin Hart or a Katt Williams. I could put Kevin Hart in this, somebody that's up there that's already proven that they are funny. Then we want to hear what they got going on, like the smart stuff. We want to hear the intelligent stuff coming from them, but you got to work your way to that.
That's a good point.
So I do think it is evolving to, like, let's say, motivational speaking with humor.
Yes.
So, and I'm not against that. And it's just like straight up comedy movies nowadays. I've noticed that some more comedy movies have been more darker and edgy to an extent, like say like The Big Sick is a good example. There's more dramatic tones to the comedies, and I just think comedy in general is evolving. It's becoming more real. It's not just fart jokes and all that shit now. It's a little bit more substance to it.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. You know, they've always said comics are truth tellers, man. And when you know that you can go watch a Dave Chappelle monologue on SNL and get more truth than you're going to get in a 24-hour cycle on CNN or NBC or Fox News, then you know, like we're in a different place right now. And it is really good that there are people willing to go out there and be candid. One thing I've noticed about comedians and musicians, their early shit, they've got something to prove, man. They come and they've been working on that first 5 minutes or that first hour special for years, for an untold amount of time. They've been working on that first debut album for this band for 6 years before they were ever discovered. After that, they start to get deadlines. Now you got to put out the next special in a year. Now you got to put out 2 specials in the next 5 years. Now you've got to get bigger numbers. Now you've got to, and while all this is happening, you're getting more wealthy, you're getting more privileged. That pain, that anger, that truth, these things that you wanted to say, like what you were saying, Alex, about Kevin Hart's storytelling and stuff like that, and how you've kind of heard it before. It's like eventually people like me aren't going to want to hear your stories about flying around in a private jet, because that shit doesn't hit to me. You know what I'm saying? That's a life that I don't understand. So when Jerry Seinfeld was talking about airplane peanuts back in the day, we could all vibe with that. But when he's like, man, it's really hard running a 250 car classic car garage, it's like I can't relate with that anymore. You know what I mean?
Not at all. And I definitely get what you're saying. I agree with the point that comedians are truth tellers. And Deion Cole said something online. I just saw it on Instagram. He said, when you have Dave Chappelle on SNL saying the N-word multiple times and
smoking
referencing
a cigarette, love it.
And smoking a cigarette on live television, SNL is a censored network. Like, I don't care what anyone says. It is so censored. And you have him going on live like that, nobody can stop him. What are they going to say? Like, cut the tape and lose money? Like, you can't. So he was basically saying, I think people should understand the fact that this is our livelihood. Instead of running from it and putting these different mantras to try to hide from it, we should actually accept it and say, hey, yeah, we live in certain areas that are very racist. We live in certain areas that are very homophobic. We live in certain areas where people don't want to wear a fucking mask. So like so we have to, accept those things. And I think going back to Kevin Hart's special, I think Kevin Hart is growing. I do think, though, this was just like a convenient check that he wanted for Netflix, because let's be clear, like, not really everyone is doing shows during this pandemic, and this is a creative way for him to do something to get a little bit more money on the side. So
and at the end of the day, I'll defend him a little bit as a stand-up comedian, and for someone at his high caliber, you do have to practice your routine until you get to the stadium, and he couldn't practice it. So that's the best defense I'm going to have for him. He didn't get to practice these at the bars and stuff like that, or at the stand-up clubs. So don't hate on him too much, guys. You know, it wasn't funny to me, but just chop it up to 2020 being.
Hold up. So, okay, not funny to you, but we've discussed it ain't everything's got to
it's subjective.
Not be funny to be good.
Exactly.
Are you going thumbs up? Or are you going thumbs down for the new Kevin Hart special?
I'm giving both my toes and both of my fingers, all of it, all the thumbs and
thumbs down.
Toes
but
down.
I would encourage everyone to go, if you have Netflix or you're using somebody else's Netflix account,
watch Tom Segura.
Go watch it and be the judge for yourself.
Yeah.
Even though we may have not liked it, that doesn't mean you won't like it. So
for sure, that's a good ending right there. I appreciate you guys for giving your insight on that.
Oh, anytime.
And Jeremy, are you wanting to see this now?
Oh yeah, can't wait. Gonna be getting off this call and going to put on that Kevin Hart that I've always been a fan of.
All right, don't ask me for the refund on that. Okay.
Yeah.
Help keep your brother out the streets. Subscribe to my dad's YouTube channel. Love, peace, and chicken.